fly today we're going to tie. This is the Dr. Burke. It is another wet fly that is in Ray Berman's Trout, and actually is originated by the gentleman who did all the beautiful color plates in the book Trout. It's a bright fly, as you can see, with the white duck quill wings and the silver tinsel body. A lot of flash in this one. It's great for clear water conditions. If you're in cloudy water, a lot of that brightness and contrast, I think, kind of gets obscured, but in clearer waters, shows up very, very well. It's just a wonderful little fly. A lot of the wet flies don't have the jungle cock eyes on them, and I thought it would be kind of fun to do one with the jungle cock in it. So that's the Dr. Burke. I'll go ahead and get started. Dr. Burke, I'm using a Mustad 3399. This is in a size 8. Place my hook in the vise, and I'll go ahead and debarb the hook. Thread, I'm using a Danville 6/0 in black. I'm going to start my thread about an eye length behind the eye of the hook, and advance it down to the end of the body, which is going to be pretty much between the point of the hook and the barb of the hook. The tail on the Dr. Burke is Peacock sword. I'm just going to select 4 fibers here. You could do 5 if you want, or if it's a larger size, you can go with even a little bit more or a little bit less. We've got 4. I'm going to measure these the length of the body, so that would be about the shank length. Tie those in, and then advance my thread back just a little bit. I'm going to trim away the excess so that this is the length of the body. This will give me a nice smooth underbody for the tinsel. Now the rib on the Dr. Burke is a French oval tinsel. I'm just using this uni French. This is a size medium. I like to tie mine right on the bottom side of the hook, and I'll explain in just a second. I think it helps in applying the rib. Just be careful. At this stage, you want to make certain that you're just keeping a nice smooth body, because we're going to have 2 layers of Mylar tinsel over this, but we don't want any excessive bumps or anything in here that would translate up into that Mylar. Now, as I mentioned, I'm using a Mylar tinsel. This is just a Danville size 14 silver and gold Mylar tinsel. There's a couple of ways you could do the body. You could leave your thread down at the end of the body here, tie in your tinsel, and then wrap that forward in a single layer. If you're going to do that, I recommend starting with a white thread, because then any little gaps that you might have between the tinsel aren't going to show up as much because it's white underneath that silver tinsel. But I'm doing 2 layers. That's why I just started with the black thread. I don't need to have the white and change it, because when I do a layer down this way, the second layer coming back up will cover any inconsistencies in my wrapping that in. I'm going to take my tinsel. I'm going to trim the ends so that I have a little bit of a point. I'm going to tie this in with the silver side up. Make certain that's secured in very well. And then I'm going to start to apply the body. I just want to put these in touching turns. Tinsel's not cooperating. You'll come around, and that first wrap, you'll have just a little bit of a bump right here where that tinsel kind of folded over. You can push that down, but it'll also get covered up when you finish the body. And that happens sometimes. That's why you have to make certain you get that tip secured in there very well, because you got to put a little bit of attention on the tinsel as you are applying this. Try that one again. Put this in touching turns. If you get a little bit of a gap, that's fine. Even if you're overlapping, don't overlap too much, because that also can translate up in through the Mylar. It's usually about 12 turns down to the end, and then you're going to come back and touching turns. I like the double layer on this. I just think it gives it a more uniform body. Any little inconsistencies kind of get covered up with that second layer. Secure that tinsel in. Turn away the excess. Now this is why I like to tie the tinsel rib in on the underside, because this first wrap as it comes up here starts to wrap on nice and neat on the back end. If I tie it on my side here, that first wrap will sometimes slip down. You can see it kind of slipping right onto the tail. But it's your preference if you wanted to have it tied on the side or on the top to start with, whatever you're comfortable with. You're going to get 5 wraps up to the head of the fly and secure that tinsel in. I'm going to clean this head space up here just so that I have a nice platform for the throat and the wing. Careful not to put too many wraps in, because you can, because of the duckquill wings on this, and then the jungle cock also, it can build up the head fairly quick. For the throat, I'm just using some yellow Schlappen. You can use some rooster hackle if you want. You're going to get all the fluff off of your feather. Then you're going to take a little bit from each side. You want to try to keep these together as best you can. Get these out so that the tips kind of line up a little bit more. They're not so steep. They're a little bit smoother. You're going to peel those off, and then you'll peel some from the other side. Putting those two together, it will give you a nice little slip of Schlappen for your throat. Place that underneath the hook. I like to have mine just right in the gap here, maybe as far back as the barb. You can have it shorter if you want. Pinch and loop underneath, bring that up, and then our throat is tied in. Again, clean up this space. We want to have a nice smooth area for tying in the wing. The wing is just white duck. I've got 2 primary feathers here that I'm going to cut a couple of slips out. I want the slips to be about as wide as the gap of the hook. Now here's a little tip for you if you're having difficulty dealing with these, cutting these slips out, getting them together, and then to tie them in. After you take the fluff and unusable parts on the bottom of the feathers here, tape them together. You tape them together with your left here and your right, then it's really, really simple to just come in right underneath here, clip your sections for your wing like that. See, I have them cut out here. The nice thing is that the barbules on the feather here is actually holding those all in place. So they're not in my hands with my big gnarly fingers messing them up. To put them together, we're going to put those together with the concave sides together so it lays flat. And it's just a simple matter of, I'll try and do this so you can see it on the, it's in the frame. But you're going to take the one, in this case, when I'm looking at it, it's the left. This one's here, your left. You're going to take that one off, and then holding that in your hand, you're just going to flip the feather around, and then you can match the tips of that to the other one and then pull the other one off. When you get them, they probably won't be 100% together. With a little practice, they're usually pretty consistent. I'll flip this over here. You can see, try not to move this around a lot. They don't quite match up in the back. You can just tap those a little bit and get those to match up. You'll also notice that I have one that's wider than the other. That's fine. You could certainly tie that in if you want. I'm going to remove the excess. That way my left and right are both the same width. So that's a little tip on managing and handling the duck. I want the tail, the tip of the tail to be, the tip of the wing to be about halfway down the tail. I'll place that on top, a little pinch and loop, and a second pinch and loop. A couple more wraps to secure it, and I'll see how my wing looks. It looks pretty good. Trim away the excess. And again, I'm going to put just a couple of wraps in to help make certain it's good and secured for putting the jungle cock in. I want to be careful not to put too many wraps on here because you can really, really bulk that head up. Now I'm using some jungle cock for the eyes on this, but what you want to use are the very small nails that are down at the bottom. So you can take a smallish nail from the left and the right if you want, or even the ones in the center. If they're straight, that's fine. What I like to do is I'm going to use the usable parts of this is basically where the white triangle is down here at the base, and then obviously the nail up here. These parts of the feather down here are not going to be used. So I like to peel these back. You got to be careful. If you pull too hard, you're just going to break the rachis on this nail, like I just did. I like to, when I can, pull those back and leave the fluff on the ends here because it gives me a nice handle to hold on to. But I'm going to tie this in right on the top of that small white triangular section, like that. Putting in a couple tight wraps to really hold that in place. I'll trim away the excess. And I'll flip it over and do the same for the other side. See if I can get this one to just peel back without breaking it. There you go. See, I like to just peel back enough, and sometimes you just can't. These they're very fragile, they'll break. but peel back enough, and then you've got all this on this end here as kind of a nice handle. I'll try and tie this one in so you can see it a little bit more on this side. Again, I just take that small triangular section at the base of the nail, and right about the center of it is where I'm going to tie that in. I like to try and get those nails just right up in the middle of the wing. They do kind of slip around sometimes. Turn away the excess. And then gently holding all of that in place, I'm now going to make the head of the fly. Again, only put in as many wraps as you need to get that head made. Even if you don't quite cover everything up, we're going to put some black lacquer on it. But also, I'm going to put in a 7 or 8 turn whip finish, so that is going to be part of the head in terms of finishing it. A little bit of head cement on both sides of the head here, just to soak down in there. And in a little bit, I'll put a couple layers of black lacquer on the Dr. Burke, and it will be done. So that's the Dr. Burke. It's a very bright fly, as I mentioned. I think it's a very good fly for in clear water conditions. If you're in cloudy water conditions or something, usually a darker pattern works better. The white duck and the yellow and the silver body will kind of tend to disappear, but this has nice contrast to it with the jungle cock on those white wings. Nice bright colors. So there's the Dr. Burke. I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for joining me at Devise today. I hope you learned at least a new pattern, if not a new technique, maybe a tip or trick here and there. If you have any questions about this fly or any of the techniques used in constructing this pattern, please leave them in the comments section down below. If you go to the trouble to ask a question, I'll go to the trouble to answer it. If you'd like to help dressed irons, please share this video with your friends and anybody you think that might enjoy this pattern. Until next time, remember, it's fly tying. If you're not having fun, then you're doing it wrong.